cry out home, and ache against the emptiness that follows a 5-year-old Dear John letter to the aging matriarchs of your immigrant family. Fill it with the massive sky of stars you first encountered as a first grader over the Caribbean countryside your mother was born on, gave birth on, and swept away from. Fall asleep to the memory of stumbling into a trench along the side of a dirt road, becoming enveloped by thick black water and schools of tadpoles, losing your champagne cola in the fall, and shaking as your Uncle Buddy lifts you, laughing at you, smelling of rum and exhaustion. Dream of crossing trenches along the Demerara River on gray planks and sandals that have lights on the soles, following in your teenage cousin's sure footsteps as she promises you some guinness and a cutting of sugar cane to chew on for the night. Wake before dawn, spooning your smartphone and looking for some answers. Using Wikipedia, trace the Marxist beginnings of a sovereign dark people to the riots of Southern California that marked your preschool years. Envision 2 brown lines in time and space. Your mother's beginning on the rural outskirts of Victoria Village, the first Guyanese lands bought independently and communally by a group of former black slaves, and your own beginning in Inglewood, Centinela Hospital, west of South Central Los Angeles, and the lines merge. CIA-backed coup to red-lined neighborhood, palm tree to palm tree. Your mother's people are backdam people, left behind as the country moved from colony to independence, infrastructure never quite penetrating. My mother and her sisters carried the sting of being forgotten with them to the States, reminding their children every day that they came from mud. Type Guyana Victoria Backdam into Google in all caps. When Google asks you if you meant Guyana Victoria Beckham, throw your phone across the room and wait for your heart to stop pounding. Read a blog post by a Scottish teen who spent a gap year in the capital, venturing into the backdam once, calling it hellish, describing the destruction of the forest with relish, painting the miners there as hungry and hard. Remember creating your aunt's first email address, trashhouse@aol.com, named after your birthright, a 2.5-room house on stilts in Victoria Backdam made of corrugated metal, wood, and newspaper, surrounded by coconut trees and rainforest. The Backdam search will come up with the gruesome details of teenagers, fishermen, and single mothers hacked to death and washed up on some creek shore, miner bitten by a loberia snake as he pisses near a pile of dry leaves. The miner's mouth, nose, and eyes bleed, and his feet swell, and this is what I find out about the Backdam in 2014. On Christmas Eve, you sat around in the dark when your family got word that Uncle Buddy died of cirrhosis. Your mother and her sisters recalled the deaths of 7 of their siblings, one suicide on the railroad tracks, one suicide at Shell Beach. You played an Usher album on your CD player and sat in a stairwell outside the Brooklyn apartment to drown out their stories, to make sense of the smirks on their faces. Later that night, you realized that they were sadly triumphant. They made it out of the trash house and sorry for the poor souls they left behind. As the sun finally rises over the frozen city, you feel how their stories slip away from you like sand, nothing to grow them, no one to tether you to the place where the blackness seeped in, only news articles and Google Street View and stray blog posts to answer the question of where are my people and what will I tell my children. Draft a Facebook message to your aunts with 4 main points. I am one of your children, still here lost. 2, I feel something like forgiveness for the small, disappointed smiles you met my wounds with, something like understanding because you were right, I am weaker than you. 3, once I woke in the middle of the night, afraid and alone, and I climbed into your bed, mumbling that I was sick. I tossed and turned, a nightmare of being left, beginning every time I closed my eyes, until you jerked the sheets from off of me. You must like making my life hell, you know. I heard the threat of being shunned from the bed, lost against the dark living room sofa. I waited until you rolled over and lay on my side, as close to your body as I could without letting you know I needed you. And I stilled myself, imagining I was a petrified wood sculpture of a small, lonely girl. I willed myself to struggle against my childhood restlessness and fear, to make you comfortable with my weaknesses. And I pretended you rolled over, wrapped your arms around me, kissing my forehead, and making me a real girl again, wanted. 4, you named me soft-eyed, rushed your sad blood through me, and I want to thank you for it. Become brave enough to make a plan, the beginnings of the future. Be brave enough to daydream a visit, a bus ride from Victoria Village to the marshy outskirts, where your family continues drinking, mourning, and writing telegrams to family in Barbados, in London, in Brooklyn, for clothes and money for the property taxes. Be brave enough to go back on the promise to forget them, To face the servitude of your aunts and uncles sent away from the house on stilts as young children to stay with middle-class families in the capital, stealing books in the night and plotting their escape silently. Pull up your mother's Facebook page and look for recent posts, reminders that she's still living, still in South Carolina in another swampy outpost, overlooking the children and ringing up customers at Home Depot. Examine her face and recognize yourself. Remember a time when you recoiled at your mirror image, revolted by her features and her wildness at show. Find a hand mirror and be brave enough to watch it form over your forehead and cheeks. Let the darkness rise and carry it like a banner into the beginning day.